James Brolin, a name that echoes through the golden halls of Hollywood. A man whose deep voice and warm smile once graced our screens in timeless love stories and unforgettable dramas. But now, at this stage of his life, the man who once seemed untouchable stands at the edge of heartbreak. The words no one ever wants to say or hear have found their way into his home. Goodbye. As cameras fade and crowds grow quiet, James faces one of the most painful battles of his life. Not on screen, but in the real world. The kind that no director can rewrite, no actor can rehearse. You see, behind the glamour, behind the fame, is a love story that has defined James Brolin for decades. His wife, the legendary Barbra Streisand, has been his anchor, his muse, his best friend. Together, they were proof that true love could thrive in the chaos of Hollywood. But now, that love faces its hardest test yet. When news broke about her devastating health diagnosis, fans across the world felt a chill. Not just because of what it meant for her, but for them. The couple who once seemed larger than life suddenly felt heartbreakingly human. James, once the charming leading man, now spends quiet mornings holding her hand, whispering words of comfort, reminding her of the thousands of lives she's touched. He doesn't talk much about it publicly, that's not his way. But those close to him say you can see it in his eyes. The fear, the strength, the unspoken love. Hollywood may remember James for his roles, his awards, his success. But those who know him best say his greatest performance isn't on screen. It's the way he stands beside the woman he loves every single day, even when the world around them begins to fade. And maybe that's what makes this story so powerful. Not the fame, not the tragedy, but the love that endures despite it all. So if you're watching this right now, take a moment to think about the people in your own life, the ones who've stood by you through everything. Because James Brolin's story isn't just about loss. It's about cherishing what you have before it's gone. Stay with us till the end. And if this story touches your heart, honor James and Barbra's love by subscribing to the channel. Because sometimes sharing love is the most powerful way to keep it alive. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, James Brolin found himself living in a world that felt strangely quiet. The laughter that once filled their home had softened into whispers, and the grand piano that Barbra loved to play now stood in the corner, untouched, a silent reminder of what used to be. For decades, the world had seen them as untouchable. Hollywood royalty, icons of class, grace, and everlasting love. But away from the cameras, James was simply a husband watching the strongest woman he'd ever known fight her hardest battle. He'd sit beside her, sometimes for hours, without saying a word, just being there. Because love doesn't always need words. Friends say he's changed. The man who once thrived on red carpets now avoids the spotlight entirely. He spends his mornings tending to the garden, making tea, checking in on her, whispering small jokes that only she understands. He's traded fame for peace, applause for quiet devotion. Every look, every smile, every shared moment feels heavier now, more sacred. It's in those still moments that James reflects on their journey. The chance meeting, the instant spark, the way they defied the odds in a world where love rarely lasts. Together, they built something rare, a bond not based on fame, but on faith, laughter, and mutual respect. And even now, as her strength fades, he reminds her that she will always be the brightest part of his story. To the world, they are legends. To each other, they are home. It's said that love reveals its true depth, not in joy, but in pain. And in this chapter of their lives, James Brolin is showing the world what true love really means. So as you watch this, remember, behind every celebrity, there's a human story, and behind every goodbye, there's a love that never really ends. If this touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and honor their journey. Because love like this deserves to be remembered forever. There are nights when James sits by the window, staring at the stars, wondering how time slipped through his fingers so fast. He remembers the first time he met her, how Barbra's laughter filled the room, how her presence seemed to command the air itself. She was radiant, unstoppable, full of life. And even now, as she faces this dark chapter, that same spark still glows in her eyes. James often says she's the strongest person he's ever known. Not because she never breaks, but because she always finds the courage to keep going. He watches her fight every single day, and even when her body feels weak, her spirit shines like it always did. Sometimes they sit together on the porch. No words, no noise, just the soft sound of the wind and the quiet understanding that comes after years of shared dreams and unspoken love. Those who know James say he's aged differently, not just in years, but in soul. His fame no longer matters. The man who once lived for the spotlight now finds meaning in simply holding her hand, in making her laugh, in reliving old memories through faded photographs. Every smile she gives him feels like a small victory. And every time he whispers, "I'm right here," it's both a promise and a prayer. To love someone this deeply is to know that heartbreak is inevitable, but it's also what makes love so beautiful. James Brolin isn't saying goodbye to fame, or even to life as he knew it. He's saying goodbye to the illusion that anything lasts forever, except love. That's what keeps him going, what keeps him strong. And as fans, maybe that's what we should take away too. To cherish the people we love while we still can. To forgive, to reach out, to say, "I love you," one more time. Because if James and Barbra's story teaches us anything, it's that true love doesn't fade. It just changes form. Thank you for watching. And if this story moved you, take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. Because stories like this remind us that love is the most powerful force we'll ever know. In the quiet hours of the morning, when the world is still asleep, James often finds himself awake, sitting at the edge of their bed, looking at Barbra as she rests, the sunlight gently tracing the outline of her face. It's in these fragile moments that everything slows down. The fame, the money, the applause, none of it matters anymore. What matters is her, the woman who made his life feel full, the woman who taught him what it means to truly love. Sometimes he thinks back to their first years together, the laughter, the arguments, the wild adventures they shared, the nights spent talking about everything and nothing at all. He smiles, remembering how she'd tease him, how she'd challenge him, how she could make him feel like the luckiest man in the world just by looking his way. And even now, despite everything, she still does. She may be weaker now, her body tired, but her soul still burns as fiercely as it ever did. And James clings to that fire, refusing to let go, because it's what keeps him alive too. Friends who visit say the love between them feels different now, quieter, deeper, stronger. It's not the passionate love of youth, but the sacred bond that only time and pain can create. Sometimes she reaches for his hand, gives it a gentle squeeze, and says softly, we've had a beautiful life, haven't we?" And James, holding back tears, always answers, "It's not over yet." Because for him, love doesn't end when time runs out. It only begins to live in a different way. It lives in the memories, in the laughter, in the moments that stay long after the world stops turning. So, as we share this story, let it remind you, love is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up, even when it hurts. James Brolin's story isn't just one of sorrow, it's one of devotion. One that reminds us all that true love endures beyond fame, beyond pain, beyond goodbye. And if this story has touched your heart, take a moment to honor their journey. Like, share, and subscribe. And let's keep their love alive in our hearts forever. And as the days grow slower and the sunsets stretch longer across the California sky, James Brolin has found a peace he never expected. It's not the kind that comes from wealth or recognition. It's the quiet kind, born from gratitude, from the realization that even in loss, love remains. He spends his afternoons reading to Barbra, sometimes poetry, sometimes old scripts, sometimes just words that make her smile. He's learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone you love is simply to be there. No cameras, no crowd, no performance, just presence. People who have known James for decades say he's become a softer man, humbled by life, transformed by the fragility of love. He no longer talks about new roles or upcoming projects. Instead, he talks about moments. How she still hums her favorite songs under her breath. How she looks for the hummingbirds that visit their garden. How every day with her feels like a gift he doesn't deserve. And when the world speculates, when the headlines twist their story into tragedy, James just smiles sadly. Because they'll never understand. They'll never see the love that lives in the quiet spaces, in the way she reaches for his hand, in the way he whispers her name when she drifts to sleep, in the way their hearts still beat in rhythm after all these years. This isn't just a story about loss. It's a story about the kind of love that refuses to die. And maybe that's the lesson James wants the world to remember. That true love isn't measured by years, but by presence, by loyalty, by the simple act of never walking away.